And we've been watching how things have been progressing from the west to the east. A couple of these systems kind of driving right along the northern tier and bringing in some wet weather. Also a bit of snow out there, too.
Yeah, and it's that time of year we have to remind ourselves that you can get rain even though the temperature at the ground is below freezing. 25 degrees, you might look at your home thermometer and say, oh, it's going to snow. No, sometimes it can rain, but that rain freezes on contact and gives us an icing scenario. We might have some of that in the Northeast over the next 36 hours.
Yeah, it's something that we have to forecast for. We'll get to all of that here in today's Big Deal.
That's right.
That fog developed here. But first, the current closures that we have on I-10, I-Town eastbound from I-510, mile marker 247 to 262, and also westbound close at Irish Bayou. The dense fog out there has just reduced visibility and done it in a very quick way again this morning here, but so thick that it is too dangerous for drivers, so you need to use an alternate route over this area. Again today, a second day in a row here, third time that we've seen in 2 weeks with this kind of fog. This is how it happened, and these are truck dash cameras that we saw yesterday, starting at 7:27, and it's not just the minutes, but the seconds matter when you watch this. This already you can see is some low visibility. You can see the car in front of you, but not much beyond that. Then we fast forward to 7:33, so now we've gone about 5 or 6 minutes, and you can barely see anything. And you go now just 30 seconds or less than a minute more, even less. And now again, we're incrementing it by 30 seconds. This is 7:34 and 30, zero visibility, completely zero. You cannot see the car in front of you at all. Can you imagine trying to drive in a situation like this here? And this is how some of those pileups happen so quickly, because you have no time at all to react before you need to stop. So, the fog and the visibility started coming down 7:27. It elapsed over just 7 minutes and 35 seconds total when you go from some visibility, not great, but some, to absolutely zero here. And that's what led to this just tremendous situation there when it comes to that pile up. Now, of course, not just the fog, the marsh fire was a big factor in this. That's still going on. We've had some low visibility this morning already. It's improving as we speak, but of course, you got to watch some of these little microclimate areas. And up towards Hammond, we're still got visibility down below about a half mile, maybe a quarter mile in spots. So still dealing with some fog issues out there right now. The super fog, which is what we've had, is when you have smoke and fog together. Visibility can be less than 10 feet, and maybe most importantly, it can just happen so fast, which gives you very little time to figure out you need to slow your speed. We know that fog is a dangerous situation on the road. More than 25,000 crashes on average happen because of fog, and this time of year we see fog a lot. I mean, this is the foggy season. The nights are long, temperatures cool down overnight here, especially in the central and southern Appalachians. This is just that time of year where we do get foggy nights and early mornings, and the same thing into the Northeast here. So be aware for sure. Pretty much, every morning it's a potential. Now we've got dense fog advisory right now, with advisories still up across parts of Mississippi, central Alabama. We'll start to see improvement here as we, the change to standard time helps as well. We get that sun up an hour earlier, but we're still dealing with some low visibility and spots like Hattiesburg still down to a quarter of a mile, and in Evergreen in Alabama, we are still down to zero. So extra caution needed here for travel this morning. Alex?
The travel hazard that we are tracking.
Why not to like it? Because it's hard to get out of the way when a warmer weather system wants to come in.
It is very stubborn, and the problem is the timing too. For this case, it comes in right at the morning commute, and so people get out there before they realize the roads are slippery.
Indeed.
Yeah, so we'll be talking about that throughout today and tomorrow.
Yeah, so you may look out your window and it looks like it's raining, but the air temperature right near the ground, below freezing, and it ices up very quickly.
Now, that same system gets into the south too, with some rain chances. Overall, it's a problem system because it's bringing those issues to the Northeast. It brings some chances of rain to the Southeast, but not as much as we need. So we'll look at the forecast today. And by the way, this is November the 8th. Yes, temps in the 80s. Jackson 86, Atlanta another day in the 80s, Nashville 84 degrees. What a great day here for CMA Day in Nashville. Lots going on in town. A lot of people in town here, and you have some fantastic weather to boot. We won't get the rain just yet. Beautiful day today. But as we watch everything shift east, and Greg talked about the system moving east, we are going to see an upper level disturbance swinging through the south, and that's going to help us bring back the moisture to parts of the southern plains and the southeast. We'll at least get a little bit of an uptick in dew points. Won't be quite as dry as it has been. We'll see some rain chances out there, especially I think eastern Texas and through parts of Arkansas. we need the rain, so I guess good. Are we going to get a lot of it here over parts of Louisiana? We'll get some. I would not call it a lot by any means. We are down so far in the rain gauges. New Orleans, a deficit of 28 inches plus. Jackson, we're more than 12 inches. Chattanooga, Tennessee, we're nearly 8 inches behind when it comes to rainfall. Many spots, and we've been talking about this on the show a lot, just how dry we are, running a top 10 or top 5 driest here across most of the southeast. Tomorrow, rain chances come in through Texas. It gets Friday here into parts of the rest of the southeast, including through Tennessee, Alabama. We get some rain. Chances come in Friday, late in the day here in Georgia. Again, but you see how it's much more scattered once we get into Friday night. There'll be some rain chances. I think the best spot of adding up to rainfall is going to be in Texas, because we just get the most repeated rounds of rain coming on in southeastern Texas. That includes you in Houston. Again, spots that could use it for sure, but the spots that need it the most won't really get as much rainfall here in the forecast. So, Alex, at least it's a chance. I mean,
Yes.
these warm days actually is a problem because we're getting more evaporation happening.
Exactly. So, yeah, this is another problem with the warm weather. Absolutely. Well, you know, it's not sweaters that's keeping people toasty across much of the
Average. We'll take a look at what we are going to find out here for you across the southeast. In Tampa, we're going above average. Temperatures are going from the mid 80s to the mid to upper 80s over the next couple of days. So staying warm here, again, above our average of 80 degrees. Just a smidge, but, you know, you're feeling it. And today is going to be the day that most people will feel that above average conditions. 156 million out there above average today. Tomorrow goes down to 145. The front will make a little progress, knocking down those temperatures. And by Friday, only 35 million above average. So today's the day to go outside and enjoy. High pressure still pretty firmly in place. We've got this big ridge of high pressure that is keeping us warm through the Ohio Valley, the Tennessee Valley, and through much of the southeast. But here comes the cold front, and it will knock down your temperatures. And maybe, you know, not super record-breaking cold, but it will knock it down from where we've been, and maybe even a little below average for some of you. Temperatures today in the 80s. St. Louis, we're going to be in the upper 70s. Louisville, again, so many folks will be outside enjoying this weather. You should take advantage of it. Maybe it's too hot, like in Wichita Falls. We're going to 91 degrees today there. Record-breaking temperatures for sure. Abilene, the forecast of 93 would break the record of 92. And honestly, these records kind of surprised me too. The fact that it has been this warm before in places like Abilene. Now, Little Rock, 81 would tie the record for today. Nashville, 84 degrees would break it. What a great day in Nashville. It's busy. A lot of folks in town for the CMAs tonight, and your temperatures are going to be in the mid 80s. Maybe it's a little too warm right here. You want to get all sweaty and all the cute dresses that everyone's going to have on and the suits. Well, we've got numbers that'll be coming down tomorrow thanks to the front. You especially feel it into Oklahoma, into Mississippi. By the time we get to Friday, it's on the move through the south, where we've got Tennessee now getting those cooler temperatures, and we're going about 5 to 15 degrees above average. Still ahead of the front. When the front comes through, we'll go a little bit below average. But the trend for next week, Alex, is more above average, especially across the northern plains and the Great Lakes.
Yeah, I just can't seem to shake this.
And came up through southern Louisiana. No drought.
Exactly. Now,
we had
almost
zero
a 30-inch
this year.
deficit.
Yeah,
It's been just completely bone dry.
It's nice to see green on the map, but Jen's point, it's not enough. It's going to take a lot of these types of weather systems over months to really make a dent in that drought.
It's almost like we're going to evaporate everything that falls out of this one before we really get the benefits. So the system extends up into the northeast here. That's where a lot of the energy is here. And it's a completely different story up across that region.
It is. Michigan being one of those places that's kind of in the bullseye.
They're not surprised to be getting some snow here in Marquette. 'Tis the season. But we do have snow today, and temperatures are going to be about 30, 35 degrees.
Yeah, there you go. Basically holding steady. Do we budge? I mean, 35 basically all throughout the evening with, again, some of that snow to deal with here as we head throughout our day. All right, water vapor imagery showing you what's going on. Actually, we've got one low that's kind of moving its way right along southern portions of Canada. Another one that's here in the Midwest as well that's pushing off towards the east.
And so you see this one kind of spinning up there, and I don't know if you get a sense of the movement of the air around it. All of this kind of funneling up and around. This is generally warmer air. I said put warm in quotes. It's still cold enough to snow, obviously, but generally warmer. So it's not like we have Arctic air coming on in. So I think the snow that we get is going to be kind of the slushy, like the 35-degree snow.
Yeah, thanks to the influence here, that Pacific Ocean there, essentially the Pacific air mass that is really in control right now. So what we've got is 41 in Green Bay and some light rain showing up there. But you head northbound, you do run into some colder air, cold enough that we do see some snow here and there.
Right, exactly. So here we watch all of it. I mean, the cold air is really confined to the northern tier. As we watch everything press east today, we'll see some showers off and on throughout the day. Could get some, won't be surprised if we get some heavier rain at times. Mostly rain, some snow again to the north where that cold air stays in.
And the amount that we see, I'd say generally light, up to an inch in a few spots. And some of the snow in northern Minnesota, couple of inches at that.
Yeah, you got to go pretty far north to get that.
Yeah.
But then all of this heads east. And so let's talk about that, because there will be some cold air stuck in at the surface tomorrow morning, Greg.
Yeah, let's say you're...
Well, the International Energy Agency says the renewable energy revolution is happening much faster than expected, and solar power leading the way.
Meteorologist Reynolds Wolf joins us with part 2 of his new series debuting on Pattern, Powering the Future. Reynolds, we want to know what happens to all those solar panels when they reach the end of their life.
It's a big question, and for a lot of people, they've been, well, it's aligned. These stories is an amazing producer by the name of Randy Flinders, and early on in this project, we were talking, and Randy said, this is going to be at odds with each other, but completely the opposite. They're trying to fulfill the same mission, that is to provide power for so many people. We all have to have it.
It's true.
So
yeah.
interesting.
And what a great way to try to do it. And I think a lot of the concern, as was pointed out in the piece, is what happens to the waste? And if you can recycle that waste
Absolutely.
and reuse it, it's a win-win.
Mine the panels, don't mine the ground, right? And coming up super fast, all I can tell you about the next story, it involves solar and sheep. And it's not bad. It's great. Yeah, it's unbelievable. Unreal
and
story.
sheep.
I
Sheep
can't
and
wait to hear
solar.
what that's about.
There you go.
For a second, I thought you said and cheap.
I'm not going to put wool over your eyes. This is a great story. It really is.
Wow,
You
look
bet.
at that. Very interesting. All right, you can watch the final installment of... Also this week, parts of the Northeast could be dealing with their first real threat of ice this season. And when ice accumulates, it can become heavy and result in building damage or water damage.
Meteorologist Paul Goodloe shows us just how much trouble ice can cause. It doesn't look like a situation of widespread power outages, but a travel issue, no doubt about it, because we all know it does not take a lot of ice to cause problems on those roads.
Ice does, even a little bit of ice does increase the weight on branches. Just a half inch can increase the weight of a span of power lines by up to 500 pounds.
That's pretty heavy.
It doesn't take much.
Hefty.
Yeah.
We're not expecting a half an inch of ice, though. So that's the good news.
That's the key. A glaze of ice is what we think. In terms of a tenth of an inch is what we're looking at. And there's a medium chance up here of seeing that across parts of northern New York State. Maybe even a chance, though, around the Capital District.
Yeah, not out of question by any stretch. And the timing of this coming in essentially overnight into the morning hours. So that timing of when it's going to be the coldest out there, and we really got to be careful with this. So here we go, looking at a glaze, and that's essentially what we are anticipating. That kind of trace to, I'd say, less than a quarter of an inch here. Hazardous travel and walking. Yeah, trying to walk on ice. We all know how that goes. And there could be some spotty outages.
And just getting onto your car in the morning, if you're parked in the driveway, your driveway is likely to be slick. So be ready for that and be aware of it. We've got, accretion mainly about a tenth, maybe some spots getting up to a quarter of an inch here. That's the brighter pink here. That's going to be in pockets. Probably some of the valley locations where the cold air just gets stuck in place.
And as we work our way into Friday, again, very similar story here. Mostly a glaze across the board. But again, we're talking about just a few pockets where we may get up to a quarter of an inch or so. So there are winter weather advisories in place. Thanks to that threat for some icing. There's going to be some snow with this as well. You head farther to the north, your best bet to get into the snow.
All right, so we want to give you a more closer view in places like Burlington and up towards Montpelier. This is your Thursday forecast. Again, the timing, 4 a.m., maybe starts a little snow, possible a little bit ice here, but it's all about those hours before, I would say, lunchtime that are going to be so critical in watching the temperature. If it's below freezing, it's probably slick.
Yeah, so watch it out. We'll give you that warning now. Well, how about we revisit our...
Throughout parts and much of the winter, that can have significant outcomes for us in North America. It's a global connection there. Oftentimes when it's very cold and snowy there, we also get very cold and snowy, especially in the Northeast. Too early to tell if this is going to be one of those lingering events, but we'll watch.
I mean, we don't need to get into this now, but there's usually a link to Siberian snowpack and our snow across lower 48. So this is why we keep watching all these things.
Yeah, and a lot of it has to do with the effect not just near the surface, but also at very high altitudes in the stratosphere. I studied a lot of that when I was in graduate school, and it's a very complicated sort of chain of events. What happens in one part of the world can weeks and months later impact significantly others elsewhere on the other side.
Yeah.
Welcome
All
back
connected.
into the show, everybody.
Yeah.
We're
Top
right
of the
into
show,
it.
getting right deep into
Yeah.
Yes, I love it. But it's true, we're all connected.
Yes, we are. But we are here with you through the mid-morning hours to help you get ready for all the big events in your neighborhood.
Weather Channel has you covered, coast to coast, tracking what's going on with these systems across the northern tier. They've been driving across, not necessarily very powerful systems, but nuisance, and it may be actually a little bit more than a nuisance coming into the northeast.
Yeah, we've got a couple issues with your weather forecast tomorrow morning, northeast, so we'll get to that.
Well, let's get to today's big deal.
Here across the south, you know, these are the scenes. I want to step through this just to give you a sense of the timing and how the super fog can develop very, very quickly. So this was 7:27. You can see the fog and some smoke mixed in. This is yesterday morning, and again, very limited in terms of visibility, but there's some. You can see the car in front of you and the car beyond that. 7:33, so just 6 minutes later, a little less than that, you can barely see the car in front of you, right? You can see it. Then we step forward another minute, and now you cannot see the car in front of you. Are they stopped? Are they moving? Hard to tell right here, and this is the danger that comes with this super fog. Then we step forward just 30 more seconds and even less visibility. You have no sense of even where you are, right? Where's the road? Where are vehicles in front of you? Are they stopped? Are they moving? So over a course of 7 minutes and 35 seconds, you can see how this all transpired, but a lot of it happened in just little 30-second increments, right? The visibility just went down so dangerously low. As we look at where we are right now, again, and we'll go back to yesterday, again, that marsh fire still a factor with the fog. This marsh fire has been going on for weeks, and you know, without rainfall, it's hard to see how this is going to change. Now we have visibility right now that has been low. We are going to be looking at some dense fog that's out there right now, improving as we get through the next couple of hours. Are we going to see a super fog? Well, a super fog is when smoke and fog mix together here, and it has to do with where the wind direction is bringing the air from here. In the case of what we saw yesterday morning, it all had to do with that marsh fire. We know that fog is dangerous. 25,000 plus accidents here due to fog. That involves more than 8,900 injuries and more than 460 deaths. And 'tis the season for fog across the east, parts of the south, certainly the Appalachians, and in the northeast here. We get a lot of foggy days, and it's really this time of year that is prone to it. The longer nights play a big factor in that. We have fog this morning with dense fog advisories out there around Baton Rouge, in New Orleans as well. Visibility is improving. Saw the tower cam, and you look out over the city right now in New Orleans. It doesn't look foggy, but there's still some pockets left around us some fog. And even in southern Alabama, we're still dealing with that with a quarter miles of visibility in Evergreen. We are seeing improvement compared to where we've been, but still dealing with those issues. So just be careful, reduce your speeds, want to make sure you keep those low beams on, and increase that following distance so you have more time should you need to stop quickly. Alex.
Great advice for sure. Well,
Yeah, but you brought up a good point about valleys. A lot of times you think the mountains are going to have the worst weather because they're higher up, they're colder, but not in the case of freezing rain. It's almost always the valleys that get socked in with that cold air.
The higher peaks will be warmer than those valleys early morning tomorrow.
Yes, don't let that catch you off guard.
Right.
So go from that to the warm air that we have in the south, and maybe some rain chances coming in here. Although, look, this weather system, northeast bringing us those problems with the ice, southeast, it'll bring us some rain chances, but not as much as we need. We, right now, though, today, are enjoying a beautiful day. For some, maybe it's too warm, 86 degrees in Houston. We've got 86 degrees in Jackson, Mississippi as well. Throughout the entire southeast, you're running above average. The sun is shining. You step outside for lunch. You don't really want to go back into the office, do you? We've got that kind of day here where we're going to see the warmth with underneath this big ridge of high pressure, but we do have a bit of a dip in the jet and an upper level disturbance associated with that. That swings in as we get to the second half of the week. It'll help the moisture come back. Dew points actually will go back up. It'll feel a little humid out there. So warm and humid in eastern Texas and up into Arkansas. Now, spots that we need the rain, yes, especially eastern Texas. We desperately need rainfall here into Louisiana and Mississippi, where we've got running some big deficits. New Orleans running more than 28 inches behind in our rain gauge. 28 inches. How do you make up for that? You need like an extra year's worth of rain. Jackson, Mississippi, more than a foot. Atlanta, more than 7 inches of rain. And in Chattanooga, Tennessee, we're running nearly 8 inches behind. So we need rainfall through the southeast. Let's show you how this next system plays out. We see the front approaching the area by the time we get into Thursday. Rain comes into Texas Texas. We get rain chances coming in multiple instances here from Oklahoma into Dallas and Waco, Austin, San Antonio, Houston. We get a couple of chances of getting rainfall. This goes through Friday. Now, you notice on Friday, the front does march through the southeast here, but it's moving along, and it doesn't really have that much time to pick up a ton of moisture. So there'll be some rain chances. We're not going to get inches of rain. We might get a little more over here across southeastern Texas, from Corpus Christi to Victoria to Houston. We have a better chance. Beaumont, Port Arthur, you'll see a lot of rainfall chances coming in here, which is good. We need the rain in those spots here. But in a place like Jackson, Mississippi, again, running about a foot behind, maybe we get an inch, and that would be actually, I think, you're optimistic, because most places to get the bigger totals, Arkansas, Little Rock, that includes you, and places like Houston, that's where we have 1 to 2 inches of rain in the forecast. Again, just because the front gets hung up there and we get a couple of chances of getting into the rainfall. When you look at the soil moisture, we're dry. The soil will soak it up here, no doubt, right there. We're dry across a lot of the south, the Florida Panhandle. So in all of these cases here, we could use the rain. Just might not get as much as you want out of this one, and then we dry up again pretty quickly. You know, Alex, it's a pretty warm and dry pattern overall, over not just this week, but next week too.
Exactly. So you start looking ahead. It's like, when are we going to get something to kind of break this pattern? It's just not happening out there. Well, you know, it's not the sweaters keeping people toasty across much of the U.S. Find out where highs are going to be heading, how strong it's going to be. Are we going to be dealing with heavy rain? Is it going to be strong winds? Tornadic activity. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much that comes along with the radar.
That was my first inclination, was radar. You know, it's got to be one of the most important. They're all important. We know that for sure.
You need them all, right?
Yes.
All right, well,
one makes the other better.
Exactly. All you have to do is head to X as well as Threads, vote in the polls, and share your comments. We always, of course, love to hear from you.
Here across the south. And let's look at places like Tampa. We're going to be above average today. So even in Florida, by this time of the year, about 80 is our average high. So just a smidge above. 86 degrees tomorrow, 86 degrees on Friday. The warmth continues. No signs of below average here. Today, there's going to be, I think, the most widespread warmth, where we have 156 million above average, 145 million tomorrow, and then 130 or only 35 million as we look at Friday. It's mainly confined to Florida. But, you know, for today, throughout the Ohio Valley, the Kentucky Valley, the Tennessee Valley, the Mississippi Valley, we're all going to be really warm thanks to this big ridge of high pressure. Temperatures are going up. A lot of sunshine, too, and that plays a big role, too. You know, through the afternoon hours, it's going to be almost hot. When you come out to your cars are going to be hot. Our temperatures today going up, and tomorrow staying up for a lot of the southeast, but the front comes in tomorrow. You'll feel it into West Texas, into Oklahoma, and then the front is on the move as we get into Friday through the rest of the southeast. So for today, we're hot, we're warm, we're hot. In Wichita Falls, 91 degrees. We got some mid to upper 80s across the rest of the southeast. That will be flirting with records. It'll break a record in Abilene at 93 degrees. St. Louis, 83, would break a record high. 82 is the old record. Little Rock, we're going to tie a record. Nashville, 84 degrees. CMAs are tonight in Nashville. What a great, glorious day. I mean, it's going to be packed down there on Lower Broadway. We've got the numbers up today. Then tomorrow, we will see those temperatures come down a bit here. 70s and Tupelo, maybe a little closer to average for you. And by the time we get to Friday, that's when the front really makes some progress. So we see throughout Tennessee and northern Alabama, the temperatures come down here, running even a little below average. But it's kind of short-lived. So by the time we get to next week, we're likely to be above average, especially across the middle of the nation here. Northern Plains will really feel it the most. But all the way down through the deep south, again, temperatures likely to be above average as we get into next week. We just can't seem to hold on to the cold air this year, Alex.
Yeah, at least not so far, right? Well,
here we're not getting it, and unfortunately, you know, up to an inch is not going to cut it. We need like a prolonged period of several rounds of these events, at least, to get us in the right direction.
You know, what didn't help us out is what happened during the summer, or what did not happen, tropical cyclones. We know there's the bad side to that, but there's a benefit to tropical cyclones. They do bring beneficial rains.
Yes, if we can just limit it to that, wouldn't that be nice?
Exactly.
We can pick and choose, take what we want out of the weather. The other thing that's not helping is the above average temperatures. I mean, I've been enjoying these nice days, but it's causing a lot of evaporation.
Yes. Drought begets drought. It keeps on going. It's a vicious cycle.
Hard to get out of it, too.
Indeed. All right. Well, Michigan is in the bullseye.
Weather that we all think of, blue skies. And I mean, look, all across the Great Lakes, it's our cloudy season once we get into November.
Yes, it is. And we certainly are going to have plenty of clouds out there in Marquette. along with some flakes of snow coming through here for the rest of our afternoon. But look at those temperatures. You want to talk about a choice temperature for the day? 35. That should be one of your lottery numbers today.
I know.
It's 35.
35. And that puts us kind of right on the precipice of rain versus snow with a temperature like that. It really then depends what's happening at the mid to upper levels. There's our low pressure spinning up across southern Canada. So you see that there, you see the motion of the air around it. This air that's coming in over Michigan is coming from the Pacific.
Yeah, not farther north.
No.
So yeah, the Pacific Ocean is more of a moderate air mass here, not extremely cold. So when you deal with that kind of air mass coming through, you're going to get to situations where it gets pretty marginal. You have to deal with different precipitation types.
Seeing a couple lightning strikes out there. Look at that.
Did I miss it? Oh, yeah, central and lower Michigan, yeah.
Don't be surprised if you see a flash of lightning out there, maybe hear a rumble of thunder. May that co-locate with the snow? Perhaps.
We shall see.
Yeah.
Now, one thing you're noticing here, you look at this, you may be thinking, man, it's raining pretty heavily. Well, in this case, it's probably what's happening is snow is melting, and the snow that is melting just appears to be heavier rains coming down across lower Michigan.
Yeah, that's a radar feature, bright banding it's called. And so that happens. You know, what we're going to be finding today, though, you know, with this general Pacific air mass coming on in, is that most of us will see mainly rain. You got to go pretty far north to get cold enough for snow.
Absolutely. So we'll watch this kind of work its way across the Great Lakes, getting a little wetter here around Green Bay during the afternoon. Chicago, rain for your evening commute, and Detroit as well. Now,
this system, though, does move into the northeast, where the timing of it's going to pose a problem for the precip type that we're going to see there, Greg.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, you know, until last summer's catastrophic wildfire in Hawaii, the Camp Fire in California had been our country's deadliest blaze. That inferno killed 85 people when flames bolted into Paradise 5 years ago tonight.
Today, the townspeople will pause for 85 seconds of silence to remember the victims. As meteorologist Jordan Steele shows us, the new Paradise is a wounded community, still healing, rebuilding, and reclaiming its future.
Wow.
Well, it's hard to live with that over, you know, kind of hanging over you.
I know. And for those who want to try to stay there, even for them, as you heard, it's difficult because it's become too expensive to even try to rebuild.
Yeah, we see that in hurricane zones, too. Yeah, this is going back here 5 years ago to that Paradise fire and all the smoke and, you know, just how explosive that fire development was.
Yeah, this thing was just unbelievable. 153,000 acres burned there for us. 18,000 structures were destroyed, and 95% of the structures here that were lost that were there in the town of Paradise as well as Concow.
It was the deadliest wildfire in California history. There were 85 people who died, and that was the deadliest before the Maui wildfire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, where we stand now in terms of the drought situation, much better. Now, we started out the year pretty dry in the state of California, but you can see where we are now. We don't have any drought showing up here across the state. This is fantastic.
Last year's water year was great for us here. You know, certainly we've seen that in terms of acres burned this year in California. We've done pretty well overall. And so, you know, drought-wise, the best we've been since 2011.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Notice what stands out there back in 2018. That's where we started off, the beginning of November. That was the year of the Camp Fire. 84% was in at least a moderate drought. So that goes to show you, starting out at 0%, that's a good start.
All right, so here's the latest drought. Looking good. The spots that, as we see, that need rain, it's Washington, it's Oregon. And we've had a pretty active storm season right now. I mean, the last week here has been busy up there. The trend continues, and actually we've got a lot of rain coming into California as we get over the next 7 to 10 days here. So great news. We don't want to dry out now that we finally aren't.
Exactly. So keep it coming, keep it coming. Here we are in terms of the fire preparedness level, standing at that 1 stage. So that's the low stage. We're going to stay in that low stage here. If we can keep that going through the winter season, we would be doing much better.
I mean, you never want to rest easy. We know that it's a fire-prone part of the country here, but it's good to be in the position that we're in right now. Again, acreage burn is much lower than we have been here, and certainly in the last year, but in looking back at the last 10-year average, you're well below average.
Yeah, so if we can keep this going, I think this will be certainly a good scenario out there for us. Well, coming up today, we talk about what's going on a pattern, which of course starts there at noon Eastern time. Meteorologist Wendell Wolf back with another installment of his new series, Powering the Future.
A lot different than under the water right here. So when ice accumulates or accretes, it can become heavy and result in building damage, maybe creating water damage.
And meteorologist Paul Goodlow shows us just how much trouble ice can cause. Not going to be looking like that tomorrow morning, that's for sure. So let's talk about this because ice can cause issues. We talk about how it can be problematic on the roads, but of course, when it comes to power lines too, the weight of that. Take a look, half an inch of ice increases the weight of a span of power lines up to 500 pounds.
Yeah, so, luckily we're not going to get a half inch of ice here, but also can increase the weight of a tree branch too by 30 times. So there's a lot of weight in water and in ice. We've got a medium chance of getting a tenth of an inch or more, maybe actually a high chance here across parts of northern central New York. It's going to be the valley locations, though, that get the biggest threat, believe it or not.
Absolutely. So watch those spots here for us. Here's the forecast showing you some of these areas in that lightest shade of the pink, maybe a tenth of an inch to a quarter of an inch in that zone. And then watch a few spotty locations where it could be a little bit more than that. That's where it could become a little bit more damaging.
Blaze of ice here, and that's we talk about with trace to a quarter of an inch, and we'll probably move more in the trace to a tenth of an inch size. But that's hazardous travel and walking, maybe some spotty power outages. Don't discount your driveways, your front steps. They could all be slippery. This time of year, so many people end up going to urgent care, a wrist. They worry about a sprained wrist, a broken wrist here. Make sure you're aware this is coming.
No doubt about it. Winter weather advisories up and posted here for the evening into tomorrow. So again, those are the areas we're going to be most concerned for. Again, some icing, but there's also going to be some snow as well.
All right, we got a question of the day. Everyone, we are here with you through the mid-morning hours to help you get ready for all the big events in your neighborhood.
The Weather Channel has you covered here from coast to coast, and we're going to be dealing with some issues here. We've been dealing with issues here. These systems coming across that northern tier. We've seen a couple, one driving on through now, and that's eventually going to impact the northeast, and it could be a bit of a problem in the morning.
Just enough cold air is on contact and leads to some icy roads, we think, tomorrow morning.
These are always the trickiest forecasts. I'm not sure why they can't be clear cut. Like, the weather presents itself as, such that you could, yes, this is going to be freezing rain, but it's never yes or no. It's always iffy. Well, we'll talk through some of the details coming up.
All right, let's get to today's big deal, and it is
looking at 30-second intervals. So I want to show you how this played out yesterday so you can see how quickly this can develop. Now, this was 7:27. And you can see the car in front of you easily. You can see the car in front of that. It's there. It's not like super easy. But beyond that, no, you can't see anything else. Now, it's 7:33, so we're talking 6 minutes or maybe less than 6 minutes later. You can still see the car in front of you, but visibility is getting reduced. But you can see them. You would know if they were stopping, right? You'd be able to see their brake lights. Now, at 7:34, very limited here. You can see these cars in the foreground, but you can't see much beyond that. And now we go ahead 30 seconds later. So 7:34 and 30 seconds, zero. Hard to tell what's around you. Is there a car next to you? Are they stopped? Are they moving? Really, you have no idea when you're looking outside here, just with how thick that fog and smog is. Really, it's a combination of the fog and the smoke. So a super fog. So over the course of 7 minutes and 35 seconds, we went from some visibility where you could drive to literally not be able to go anywhere because you have no idea what is happening. It is that dense and thick here. It's hard to imagine even driving in that, right? I want to take you back to some of the lower visibilities, and the combination was the fog and the marsh fire that is still ongoing now. And so, visibilities had dropped. We saw some spots like up in Hammond dropping below a quarter of a mile. Other spots, as you can see, obviously down to about zero. We had some issues earlier this morning. Thankfully, those have improved, so I-10 travel is now reopened. But when you have smoke and fog mixed together, that's considered a super fog. Visibility can be less than 10 feet here, especially over some of the elevated highways, like we have portions of I-10 there over Lake Pontchartrain. Fog is dangerous. More than 25,000 crashes related to fog. Here's the 10-year average. Injuries, more than 8,900 and 464 deaths due to fog on the roadways here. So take it very seriously. This is the foggy season across the east, especially in the central Appalachians, especially in the northeast. The fog often kind of gets settled down into the valley areas here and end up being the foggy spots that hang on to the fog the longest. We have the long nights, just 'tis the season for fog to develop. So reduce your speed, low beams. We know the drill on that, right? Increase your following distance and minimize distractions, maybe turning off the radio or your podcast or not talking on the phone here. These are all things you can do to be safer when it's foggy. Alex.
Great advice.
Should be melting.
You're exactly right. This is one of the weird cases where warm air wins. So often cold
Warm
air
air's
wins.
winning.
Cold air often wins. So
It does.
it's heavier, denser, but in this case, warm air is going to win.
It will eventually
Yeah.
get that cold air out of the way, and we're going to melt any ice that begins to build up in the morning.
Yeah, the warm air has been winning in the south too, creating all these
Sure
record
has.
temperatures.
Yeah.
And the sun has been shining so bright. Another day like that across the southeast today. We've got the numbers going up to record high levels. Lots of 80s out there. Look at Nashville, 83. Yes, but the problem with this is that there's no rain. We do need it across the south here, big time. Now, that's going to change as we get through the end of the week. The second half does feature a change in the pattern, which we'll see a little dip in the jet stream. An upper-level disturbance associated with that will help bring in some rain chances. Moisture returns, especially in Texas and maybe up into Arkansas and Oklahoma, a little bit into Louisiana, not as much as we might like to see. However, we'll get some chances of rain coming in, and you see that in the forecast getting through the rest of the week. There's a chance. So then let's step through how this is going to play out and what days you're going to be dealing with the rain. Starting with who needs the rain the most, it is us in Louisiana. It's far eastern Texas, Mississippi. We keep getting drier and drier every week. Tennessee, where basically just saw a flash drought developed where the conditions really got dry in the last several weeks. Like Chattanooga, we're nearly 8 inches behind in rainfall. New Orleans still winning the drought, unfortunately, here in a very bad way, where we're running more than 28 inches behind in rainfall. Atlanta, you're running more than 7 inches behind here. And we're a top 5 driest, or at least top 10, but across the entire southeast when it comes to this fall season so far. So this rain is welcome, and it comes in on Thursday with rain moving in through Texas. Here comes the front, there goes the temperatures, but here comes the rain. And we'll see that through Dallas and Shreveport into early Friday morning. Now by early Friday morning, too, we get some rain chances through Tennessee. Here comes your front into Nashville and Knoxville. Rain chances through Huntsville as well. All the villes getting into the rain as we get through the end of the week here. But it's a chance of rain. It's not a big soaking rain that lasts all day. You see how that kind of moves through. Some of it left behind into the first half of Saturday. You'll see that around New Orleans. And in Texas, we get to keep the rain the most. And so, we get the most chances of rain, most beneficial rain coming our way. That'll help us out. We are running a drought in Austin and San Antonio and Corpus Christi, Beaumont, Port Arthur. You guys are right in the heart of the exceptional drought right there. But of course, in Louisiana, where we need it the most, and into Mississippi, we've got maybe an inch. And I think that's optimistic. Most will be less than that. 1 to 2 inches chances there. And I think down through Corpus Christi, that's where we have about 2 to 3 inches of rain coming on into the forecast here. And again, the soil's dry, so it's going to slurp that up pretty quickly, and that rain starts falling. Alex, until then, it's hard to not appreciate these nice days, especially in November. But, it's got you questioning, when are we going to get
When? Exactly.
When are we going to fix this drought?
You start looking ahead, and the models don't necessarily put out a whole lot of moisture here.
Yeah.
It could get tough. Well, it is not sweaters keeping people toasty, these tools as well, right? You know one thing, Jen, we forgot to even think about?
Buoys. How is our buoy going? It was supposed to get some service soon, right?
Yes, the one buoy that we were tracking there in the Atlantic that went out of commission. Something happened. Hopefully they fix that thing and get it up and running.
I lump it right in with observations.
Yeah, that's a good
It's an
point.
observation.
Yes, just over the water.
Yes. I'll keep those comments coming, and you here across the south. And let's look at places like Tampa. We're going to be above average today. So even in Florida, by this time of the year, about 80 is our average high. So just a smidge above. 86 degrees tomorrow, 86 degrees on Friday. The warmth continues. No signs of below average here. Today, there's going to be, I think, the most widespread warmth, where we have 156 million above average, 145 million tomorrow, and then 130 or only 35 million as we look at Friday. It's mainly confined to Florida. But, for today, throughout the Ohio Valley, the Kentucky Valley, the Tennessee Valley, the Mississippi Valley, we're all going to be really warm thanks to this big ridge of high pressure. Temperatures are going up. A lot of sunshine, too, and that plays a big role, too. Through the afternoon hours, it's going to be almost hot. When you come out to your cars are going to be hot. Our temperatures today going up, and tomorrow staying up for a lot of the southeast, but the front comes in tomorrow. You'll feel it into West Texas, into Oklahoma, and then the front is on the move as we get into Friday through the rest of the southeast. So for today, we're hot, we're warm, we're hot. In Wichita Falls, 91 degrees. We got some mid to upper 80s across the rest of the southeast. That will be flirting with records. It'll break a record in Abilene at 93 degrees. St. Louis, 83, would break a record high. 82 is the old record. Little Rock, we're going to tie a record. Nashville, 84 degrees. CMAs are tonight in Nashville. What a great, glorious day. I mean, it's going to be packed down there on Lower Broadway. We've got the numbers up today. Then tomorrow, we will see those temperatures come down a bit here. 70s and Tupelo, maybe a little closer to average for you. And by the time we get to Friday, that's when the front really makes some progress. So we see throughout Tennessee and northern Alabama, the temperatures come down here, running even a little below average. But it's kind of short-lived. So by the time we get to next week, we're likely to be above average, especially across the middle of the nation here. Northern Plains will really feel it the most. But all the way down through the deep south, again, temperatures likely to be above average as we get into next week. We just can't seem to hold on to the cold air this year, Alex.
Yeah, at least not so far, right? Well,
I think the drought conditions are going to get worse going over the next couple of weeks.
When you look at the pattern, you know, there's no good soaking rain. This will evaporate before we really get to benefit from it. So that's one of the big stories that we're focusing on. We also have a system that's tracking from the Midwest, Great Lakes, over to the Northeast.
Yeah, and Michigan right now is seeing some rain and even some freezing.
this is basically what you're in for the next 10 months.
This is not their first snow, though.
No, not at all. Yeah, we've already gotten a bit, and we got a little bit more to come for the rest of the day. And Marquette, look at this. We'll be in the snow throughout the afternoon and evening, and those temperatures, I mean, not budging at all. Mid-30s, essentially, is what you got.
I'm thinking of this country song, Michigan for the Winter, and it's about like, if you are depressed, but like it's so cloudy this time of year, like you just go and hunker down and like, okay, this is if you want to be sad and you know, with all the clouds and everything else. I mean, look, this will come through today, tomorrow. We'll get some breaks after this, but for now, we're stuck with a system that actually has some Pacific influence with it.
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons why we're not talking about everyone dealing with snow is because the Pacific influences, it's generally a milder air mass that drives in. So we do have a lot of rain, but some pockets of some cold to help to support a little bit of snow.
Little thunder lightning out there. Milwaukee, heads up.
Yeah.
It's not too far from you. We've got right now conditions that are a little snowy up towards Sault Ste. Marie. A lot of this isn't a big deal, not as big as it looks on radar, I guess.
Yes, it is doing a little fooling of you here.
Yeah.
Generally, what we're finding is snow that's aloft melting in the radar. When it picks up melting snow, it says, oh my goodness, it's raining heavy, but it's really just melting snow.
Right. All right. So we've got that going on. And with this configuration of the jet stream, moving things along, there is going to be that Pacific influence. And so, you know, it's not the cold coming down from Canada. It's the air that comes in and sort of wraps around. So it'll change most of you, not all of you, but most of you over from snow to rain.
Absolutely. So moving for the rest of the day, you can see how rain issues kind of expand a bit. Chicago, Detroit, as we work our way through our evening rush, we'll have to deal with that. But the amount of rainfall we anticipate, I'd say generally going to be pretty light.
Yeah, it's mainly up into the UP of Michigan that gets the snowfall. And there we could see a couple of inches here. You know, maybe need the shovels out for that one. You're watching that through today and tonight. Then this system goes into the Northeast, Greg, and brings all of the travel issues.
Yes, it's going to start off as...
Well, you know, until last summer's catastrophic wildfire in Hawaii, the Camp Fire in California had been our country's deadliest blaze. That inferno killed 85 people when flames bolted into paradise 5 years ago tonight.
Today, the townspeople will pause for 85 seconds of silence to remember the victims. As meteorologist Jordan Steele shows us, the new paradise is a wounded community, still healing, rebuilding, and reclaiming its future. That over, you know, kind of hanging over you.
I know. And for those who want to try to stay there, even for them, as you heard, it's difficult because it's become too expensive to even try to rebuild.
Yeah, we see that in hurricane zones too. Yeah, this is going back here 5 years ago to that Paradise Fire and all the smoke and, you know, just how explosive that fire development was.
Yeah, this thing was just unbelievable. 153,000 acres burned there for us. 18,000 structures were destroyed, and 95% of the structures here that were lost, that were there in the town of Paradise as well as Concal.
It was the deadliest wildfire in California history. There were 85 people who died, and that was the deadliest before the Maui wildfire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, where we stand now in terms of the drought situation, much better. Now, we started out the year pretty dry in the state of California, but you can see where we are now. we don't have any drought showing up here across the state. This is fantastic.
So last year's water year was great for us here. Certainly we've seen that in terms of acres burned this year in California. We've done pretty well overall. And so, drought-wise, the best we've been since 2011.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Notice what stands out there. Back in 2018, that's where we started off, the beginning of November. That was the year of the campfire. 84% was in at least a moderate drought. So that goes to show you, starting out at 0%, that's a good start.
All right, so here's the latest drought. Looking good. The spots that, as we see, that need rain, it's Washington, it's Oregon. And we've had a pretty active storm season right now. I mean, the last week here has been busy up there. The trend continues, and actually we've got a lot of rain coming into California as we get over the next 7 to 10 days here. So great news. We don't want to dry out now that we finally aren't.
Exactly. So keep it coming, keep it coming. Here we are in terms of the fire preparedness level, standing at that 1 stage. So that's the low stage. We're going to stay in that low stage here. If we can keep that going through the winter season, we would be doing much, much better.
I mean, you never want to rest easy. We know that it's a fire-prone part of the country here, but it's good to be in the position that we're in right now. Again, acreage burn is much lower than we have been here, and certainly in the last year, but in looking back at the last 10-year average, you're well below average.
Yeah, so if we can keep this going, I think this will be certainly a good scenario out there for us. Well, coming up today, we talk about what's going on a pattern, which of course starts there at noon Eastern time. Meteorologist Wendell Wolf back with another installment of his new series, Powering the Future.
A lot different than under the water right here. So when ice accumulates or accretes, it can become heavy and result in building damage, maybe creating water damage.
And meteorologist Paul Goodlow shows us just how much trouble ice can cause. Going to be looking like that tomorrow morning, that's for sure. So let's talk about this, because ice can cause issues. We talk about how it can be problematic on the roads, but of course, when it comes to power lines too, the weight of that. Take a look, half an inch of ice increases the weight of a span of power lines up to 500 pounds.
Yeah, so, luckily a half inch of ice here, but also the weight of a tree branch too by 30 times. So there's a weight in water and in ice. We've got a medium chance of getting 1/10 of an inch or more, maybe actually a high chance here across parts of northern central New York. It's going to be the valley locations though that get the biggest threat, believe it or not.
Absolutely. So watch those spots here for us. Here's the forecast showing you some of these areas in that lightest shade of the pink, maybe 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch in that zone, and then watch a few spotty locations where it could be a little bit more than that. That's where it could become a little bit more damaging.
Blaze of ice here, and that's, we talk about trace to 1/4 of an inch, and we'll probably move more in the trace to 1/10 of an inch size, but that's hazardous travel and walking, maybe some spotty power outages. Don't discount your driveways, your front steps. They could all be slippery. This time of year, so many people end up going to urgent care, a wrist. They worry about a sprained wrist, a broken wrist here. Make sure you're aware this is coming.
No doubt about it. Winter weather advisories up and posted here for the evening into tomorrow. So again, those are the areas we're going to be most concerned for. Again, some icing, but there's also going to be some snow as well.
All right, we've got a question of the day.